Hello and welcome to the Grounded Awakening podcast, conversations connecting science and intuition, real life lessons from real people, real professionals who've had experiences that help them awaken to the truth of what they need and what is needed to thrive in their profession. These are conversations to help us evolve and awaken to what we need to be grounded yet spiritually awakened in life, in parenting, in education, in healthcare, and in the way we interact with the world around us. We hope to ripple change through awareness and by helping people connect with their mind, body, spirit, one conscious conversation at a time. Hello, good morning, and welcome to the Grounded Awakening podcast. I am really excited to have my guest, Kaytee Hadley, on. Kaytee is a functional medicine dietitian, a health coach, a personal trainer, founder of Holistic Health and Wellness, where she supports folks in addressing the root causes of their symptoms and creating a lifestyle that fosters mind-body wellness long-term using her 6 lifestyle pillar approach. Ooh, what would that be? Kaytee witnessed firsthand the divide between mental and physical health care as a teen struggling with anxiety, depression, and poor physical health, and it almost cost her her life. After a suicide attempt at 16, she was determined to find true healing for body and mind instead of just managing her symptoms. She studied nutrition, psychology, kinesiology, and functional medicine to find these answers, and she founded Holistic Health and Wellness to share them with others. I love this story so much because I feel like right now we're in a crisis in our country. We have a lot of people, especially teenagers, struggling with mental health challenges. Sadly, one of my son's really good friends just died of an overdose on Sunday. So I feel like this is such a timely topic. And as any of my listeners know, any of my followers know, I am very passionate as a RN, a former critical care nurse. I am very passionate about holistic health and healing and about bridging the gaps between Western medicine and Eastern medicine. And really, that comes to finding the root cause of what's going on. A lot of times we just slap Band-Aids on things. So I'm so excited to have Kaytee join us, and she brings that real science background along with her own grounded awakening and her own intuition to really help heal the world one moment at a time. So welcome, Kaytee.
Thank you so much, Jen. And I just want to start by saying I'm so sorry to hear about your son's friend. And as if the teen years aren't enough, to
Yeah.
lose a good friend in that way. I'm so sorry you and your family are dealing
Yeah.
with that.
You know, I thank you for that. It was sadly not, this was not terribly unexpected. I mean, there are certain people that are struggling. And you know, my oldest son is 22. And in his 22 years, he has lost 6 friends already. So some from suicide. So this is why I feel like this couldn't be a more timely conversation that you and I are having. And as most things, I can honestly come at this from experience. I mean, I remember, although it was a long time ago, I remember being a teen struggling myself. And we all go through things. I truly believe there's a purpose to everything. I really believe that. That's what gives me hope is when I look at what's happening in the world, I look at what's happening to myself. What are the challenges that I'm facing? And I look to the lessons. I look to the magical messages. And that really is the messages of our mind, body, and spirit. And if somebody asked me recently, like, what do you think is going on with youth today, with what's happening in society today? And I truly believe there's a disconnect from our spirituality. And I don't mean religion. I mean that connection to ourselves and to how we fit in the world and to something bigger than ourselves and to the interconnectedness of all of us and every aspect of our being. So I'm so excited to have you on. Kaytee, can you tell us a little bit about your own grounded awakening?
Yeah. So I love what you just said about taking these experiences that are so challenging and so difficult to get through
Yeah.
and trying to make something beautiful of it. What is the point of suffering if we can't use it in that kind of a way?
Right.
And you know, I guess that's where I'm at now also in my journey, and why I founded, Holistic Health and Wellness, because that suffering that I experienced, I thought for so long while I was going through it, why? Like, what is the point of this?
Right.
Will I ever get through it? But this seems pointless.
Mm.
And now to be able to turn that into something where I can support folks who are also going through that, and I can come from a place of understanding. And I feel like I am filling a gap in terms of this disconnect between mental and physical health care, which we can totally talk about and get into.
Mhm.
But trying to take, no matter what that experience is, trying to take it and turn it into something beautiful. And in my mind, that's usually helping other people, because we're all in this, spiritual beings living this human experience, to your point, and we could all use more support. We could all use more
Mhm.
community and talking about these quote unquote taboo topics, but it shouldn't be taboo, because all of us struggle with mental health at some point or another, just like
100,
we do with physical health, right? So it shouldn't
100%.
be taboo.
Right, the stigma behind it is that it's a weakness, and it's
Yeah.
not. It is reality. It
Yeah.
is your own, it is the spiritual awakening. It is, you go through these struggles so you can awaken to the truth behind them, so you can uncover them. And I think about, Brene Brown said, if you're not in the arena with me, I don't want to hear it. Basically, I don't know. I wrecked that quote, but I think that I know what makes me a powerful coach and speaker, and I'm sure what makes you a powerful coach and speaker, is that we've been in it. We're not coming from a place of up here looking down on you. We're coming from, literally, from the other side of the struggle. And
Yeah.
I feel like that's what makes it so much more powerful, because you can honestly say, like, I understand what you're going through. It's
Right.
not sympathy, it's empathy. I've been where you are, and I want to be your beacon of hope, to tell
Mhm.
you that you can get through this.
Mhm.
So, yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, and I think we could all use that message of hope, and for it at different times, right? There are certain
Mhm,
times in our life where we need that hope, and we need that encouragement, and we need to feel like we're not alone. And I know, struggling as a teenager, for me, I felt so alone, and I felt kind of crazy. I felt like, well, there's something wrong with me. And, the doctors had
mhm,
told me there's just something, there's a chemical imbalance in your
mhm,
brain, and you're just going to have to deal with this depression, this anxiety for the rest of your life. And, when you're 13, 14, 15, like, that is terrifying,
mhm,
right? Because people say, oh, it's high school. It's no big
mhm,
deal. What do you have to worry about?
mhm,
And just get over it. And that message of hope and the message of empowerment, there is something you can do. That's really powerful. And I wish that I had had that at a younger age,
yeah,
because I think that moment of awakening, it wasn't really like a moment. There wasn't one point in time where I can say, this was it. My eyes were open, but there was a turning point for me.
yes.
And to
That
go
is
back
the
a little
awakening.
bit.
That is the awakening.
Okay. So
Yeah.
let's talk about that. So as a kid, I struggled with a lot of anxiety. And, I don't think it was really pathologized. It was just like, oh, your kid's anxious, separation
Mhm,
anxiety, like it's okay.
mhm,
And, my parents did a pretty good job of like fostering me in that way, in terms of like, trying to help me build confidence in myself and all of that. But I also started having gut issues at a young age, and some other things were going on with me physically. So I was, on antibiotics several times. I just always had a stomach ache, always. And they did some testing, and no one could really figure out what was wrong. And I was just told, they told my parents, like, give her snacks, it's her anxiety, it'll be okay. Well, this kind of grew until the point where I would say 12 was really the point where the depression hit hard. And at 12, most people, again, I think in many people's minds, 12 is still a child. And why would you be depressed as a child? What,
mhm,
you live in a loving home with lots of siblings and all of these things. What could possibly be going wrong? So I think that it wasn't taken as seriously as I was feeling it,
mm,
because, I didn't have the words to express that. I didn't know what that was. And at 12 years old, I started cutting myself, and, this type of self-harm. And I think it was very much a way of, I don't know how to deal with these feelings. the internal pain is a lot, and physical pain, I could wrap my head around physical pain. I couldn't wrap my head around the kind of mental pain that I was experiencing, and emotional pain. And so over the next couple years, my parents got me therapy, and I was put on medication, antidepressants, anti-anxiety, saw a psychiatrist, those kinds of things. Meanwhile, getting worse infections, chronic sinus infections, my gut issues were getting worse and worse. And no one really thought to connect these two. No one ever thought that they could be related. And looking back, I feel like I was looked at as the problem. Like, you're the problem. And I think these were more subliminal message. No one really said this to me outright, but it was like, you get the therapy, you do the things because this is on you, and we're going to try to support you, right? It wasn't really looked at in terms of my environment. And, I had experienced trauma at an early age, and that wasn't really addressed. And so there was just these different pieces. And again, I'm being told I'm the problem. And this sort of escalated until I was 16, and I attempted suicide. And after that, my therapist said to me, I don't know if it was in response to this, but she said to me, nutrition can help with the way that you're feeling. And I have to admit that I didn't really believe her at first. By this point, I'd been dealing with this for several years, and no one had mentioned that. But she recommended me a book, and I picked it up, and I think that was in many ways that moment of awakening, which was really that empowerment that I mentioned. It was, okay, so maybe I'm not destined for this. Maybe there is more that I could do. The therapy, yes, it's helpful. The medication is helping me manage my symptoms, but there's more going on. And maybe by taking care of my physical body, I can help take care of my brain and my mind and my mental health. And that was a paradigm shift for me in terms of the way I thought about my health.
Right. I mean, so much of what you're saying is like, yes, yes, yes. I mean, we're both, you're functional medicine trained. I'm whole health education trained, which is very similar. But we look at, and this is very Eastern medicine. I teach a course called Holistic and Complementary Approaches to Health and Healing. And this is a foundation of what I teach is health is not just about physical or even nutrition. Think about how many people think, if I just eat the right things, if I just exercise, I'm going to be healthy. But they have no idea the other stressors in their lives. And so, you mentioned the gut brain. That is a stressor because the gut is its own nervous system. And our serotonin levels and our serotonin and our dopamine is produced in the gut. And so people don't realize that. So good nutrition is absolutely important. I remember what really turned me on to nutrition and what made me get my first nutrition certification was when my son was going through cancer. And I was looking to the doctors and the nurses and saying, and actually had a consultation with the dietitian. And I said, what can I do? Like, what kinds of foods can I get into my son? He was 2.5, 3 at the time. And they said, just get calories in him. Just get calories in them. And I remember seeing the people waiting for their kids with, bags of McDonald's and Dairy Queen and Smiles as their kids would come out of the operating suite. And I'd be like, no, that's not it. And I knew it wasn't it, but I needed the science to back up what my intuition and my gut was already telling me. So, I couldn't, and the environment, absolutely. The environment plays a big role in our mental health and well-being. There's so many toxins out there. We have toxic environments emotionally in the schools. I was wanting to ask you actually, because I've gotten this with when I was a kid and I battled major anxiety and depression. And I see it with my kids, and my oldest actually was suicidal right around the same age as you were. And he, on the surface, looked like everything was perfect. Like, good looking kid, top athlete, captain of the lacrosse team, captain of the football team, all this stuff, right? So everybody's like, to your point, what do you have to be depressed about? But what they didn't realize is the internalization. So I happen to know it comes from a belief system that was created because he was the oldest and he had 2 brothers that were sick, and he internalized his emotions because he didn't want to burden me. So the belief system he got was that I'm not important. Not that I intentionally created that belief system in him. That was just the circumstances of our life. And let me tell you, when this happened, I remember going out of my way to let him know, you are important. You do not have to fix things for me. It is my job as your parent to provide you with a safe environment for you to learn and grow. And so I feel like in this chaotic world where there are so many expectations put on kids, you have the social media, you have the comparison constantly. You have all of these external things and judgments and stuff, and no one really nurturing the internal world, the internal belief systems, and the questioning of reality with truth, like your inner truth. So I feel like that's at the root cause. But I love what you said, which everybody is pushing it on you, or it's a chemical imbalance. They want to see a cause and effect, and they don't necessarily recognize in Western medicine that it really is a holistic piece. It really is so many different factors. So I love that you said that. I love that you said that. So while we're talking about that, can I ask you, what do you think the biggest gaps in healthcare are right now, as far as the way that we're approaching? Because I really believe that there are a lot of extremes out there. And, when you talk about gut health, a lot of people just throw probiotics at you. That's like, no, that's not necessarily it. That's not,
Right.
some of those aren't even reaching your gut.
Right.
So you are spending a lot of money on things that you're just going to poop out or
Yeah.
pee out, right? The
Yeah.
vitamins. So I'd love to get your take on this.
Uh, yeah, there are a couple pieces I think that are fundamentally broken about our healthcare system. And I wouldn't even call it a healthcare system. I would call it a sick care system.
Yes.
We don't take a preventative approach to health. We take an approach of putting out fires. And don't get me wrong, there's a place for that, right? If I'm in a car accident, please take me to the nearest
Absolutely.
emergency room, right?
Right.
Like, put out that fire, save me, right? Help me
Right.
heal. In that acute setting, right?
Right.
We need that. But why do we wait until we get to that point, right?
Right.
Why don't we try to prevent what's going on? We know that if we talk about dollars, definitely most of the dollars in our
Mm,
healthcare system go towards these chronic diseases
yes.
later on when we know they could be prevented. But
Yep.
more than dollars, these are people's lives. And
Yes.
not only is it their lifespan, it's their health span. So
Yes.
we're focused on extending, keeping people alive, sure, but we
Right.
don't really focus on keeping them healthy. And
Right.
we do that because we focus on the symptoms, right? If we take a tree,
Mm-hmm.
use the tree analogy, and we have the leaves and the branches and the pieces we can see, those are our symptoms, right? Maybe that's high blood pressure, maybe that's heart disease, maybe that's high blood sugar, whatever that is. Maybe it's depression, anxiety. And
Mm-hmm.
we're really focused on, like, trim out those yellow leaves, right? Those dead branches, but we don't focus on, why is that happening? What's going
Right.
on at the root? What's in the
Right.
environment here?
Right. What's the soil like? What's the yes.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And those roots are really what functional medicine aims to address, is the root cause. It's root cause medicine, the root causes of the symptoms. And
Mhm.
we know that the root causes come down to those 6 pillars I talked about. So nutrition, movement, the
Mm.
circadian rhythm, right? The sleep wake cycle, toxins, the mindfulness, that mental component, and the
Mhm.
community and support. These are at the roots. And
Mhm.
we know that not only can we prevent these chronic diseases, physical and mental, but that we can also reverse some of them as
Yes.
well.
Yes.
And our model is set up with a pill for every ill, right? You have hypertension,
Mm.
take this, you have, this. And again, we're managing the leaves, we're keeping that person alive, but their quality of life and their length of their health span
Yeah.
during that life is diminished.
Yep.
So I think that is one of, the foundational kind of disruption in our healthcare system, is focusing on the sickness instead of optimizing health. And like you said, it's more than just you're sick or you're healthy. It's
Right.
it's a big
Right.
spectrum. And most people fall somewhere kind of in the middle, I think, because, maybe they're not bedridden with, debilitating diseases, but they're not living their best life.
Right.
And so how can we move people towards that along that spectrum to thriving instead of just surviving?
Yes. Yes. Amen, sister. Absolutely. Absolutely. Preach. No, I mean, it's for me, I also think about it as accountability. I mean, a lot of times we are looking, I mean, my mother is a prime example, love her dearly, but she will go to the doctor, whatever they say she's going to do, but she doesn't want to take personal responsibility for
Mm,
her choices, her actions. And when I talk about the circle of control with my clients, we look and we feel out of control with what's happening around us. And we try to control things that are really not within our control. And think about if we actually focused on controlling the things that are within our control, like our choices, like our actions, our reactions, who we surround ourselves with,
mhm,
right? Our environment. If we actually focused on prioritizing those things,
mhm,
can you imagine how much healthier and happier we'd be?
mhm,
Because we'd hold on to more energy. We have so many people that are living exhausted, just literally running on fumes because they're showing up for everybody and everything except themselves. And
mhm.
so, I mean, I everything that you said just resonates 100% with me, and I that's my practice. That was kind of my awakening. One of my aha moments when I was a critical care nurse is I was like, "Wait, this isn't it."
Mm,
Like, what?
yeah.
And now when I teach, I was talking to my students about the very beginning of my class, I talk about healthcare costs and the fact that the evolution of healthcare. And in the old days, back before we had any of the technology, it was lifestyle medicine. It was functional medicine.
Mm,
Our lives were not as chaotic and stressful. Our priorities were really on family and community. We've gotten so far away from that where people don't know where they fit in the world. And so they've lost their roots energetically as far as grounding them into the earth and into kind of their steadiness, their safety and security. And unfortunately, when those roots get upset, everybody starts spinning. And that spin is where we're looking to everybody else to fix it. But the answers are all within ourselves. We
mhm.
hold the answers. So when you were talking about everybody kind of pushing, like, well, this is you, many times it is you. It is you as far as the whole being of you,
Right.
and what the root cause is, only you can kind of figure out. And that's what I think people don't understand, and that's where it takes some hard work. You could figure it out, obviously, with a practitioner, but when you hand over your power to somebody else to tell you what's wrong, what you need, who you are, and how you are going to live optimally, that they don't know you like you know you. Same thing when you're a
Right.
parent. Nobody knows your child better than you know your child. You know that people can kind of guess. And to me, the best practitioners are the ones who really have that really deep inquiry and listen to what you say and allow you to be the co-creator of your life and the co-director of your health, right? So when you're talking about the root cause, like what do you wish that people did with you when you were a child going through all of that? What do you feel like now, having the knowledge that you have, how would you approach you when you were a child?
Mm. That's such a good question. I wish that someone had told me that there was a reason why, and that if we worked together, we could understand and address why I was feeling that way physically and mentally,
Mhm.
and that I would have been heard. And instead of, to your point of being told, take a pill, go to therapy, do these things, asking me, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
And I definitely got to the point where, yes, I wanted to go to therapy. That was really helpful for me. but there was so much more than that. What about everything else?
Mm-hmm.
And I also, going back to that message of hope, I think that would have been really, really powerful for me in wanting to get through it. Because when you're in that place, it is so hard to keep going,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which
Mm-hmm.
is why we have these really high rates of suicide and all of these different things. And, whatever it is that kind of takes us out of that pain in the moment,
Yeah.
all of these vices. And you asked, how would I approach that today? I have the honor now of supporting lots of different folks in their journeys, and some of those are young girls. And it feels very full circle for me in terms of working with someone that I can so incredibly relate to.
Mm-hmm.
These young people with anxiety, with depression, with poor relationship with food and with their body, and you know, having that first meeting and having them be completely shut off from me and not even really wanting to engage, and just taking the time to be like, hey, like, tell me about your dog. I hear a dog barking. Like, getting to know them
Mm-hmm.
and asking them at the end of that conversation, do you want to work together? Do you want me to support you in this journey? Because if they say no, that's up to
They're not ready,
them,
right?
right?
They're not ready. Yeah.
But to help them kind of see during that conversation that maybe there is another way. Maybe
Yeah.
it's worth just looking into. I know it can be scary at first. Like you said, you have to have that power and that control, right? Because at the end of the day, no one has the ability to change our lifestyle like we do.
Yes.
But it's so scary when oh my gosh, at 18, 17, I was like trying to look at PubMed article. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like barely
Right.
out of high school, like do my research and like read these random books. And I didn't have anyone who really knew about the science about it. I didn't even know that functional medicine was a thing. I was just like, tell me more. Like, oh, wait, fish oil? That can like help with depression? Wait, what? Like, this was
Mm-hmm.
just this whole big world, and I had no idea where to start. And I
Right.
had no idea what to really do. And I was in the place of wanting to do it. But I was just like, someone provide me with some guidance and
Yes.
support, because I am like drowning here. And where do I go from here? And,
Yes.
that's what led me on this journey of studying psychology and kinesiology and nutrition and functional medicine. But it was really rocky. You mentioned something so powerful, that you can eat the food and move your body, but that doesn't mean that you're being healthy.
Right.
And you could not have been more spot on. That is exactly what happened with me. I accidentally kind of got myself into the fitness industry. So I became a personal trainer because I started exercising and that felt good, and really being interested in my nutrition. And on the outside, I looked like I was being healthy. I was exercising every day. I was, being mindful of what I was eating, but it turned into this really toxic relationship with food, with my body, with movement. And being in the fitness industry for me had a really negative impact on that relationship and on my mental health in that way. And it almost became this different version of what I was doing.
Yeah.
Um,
The
but
extreme. Yeah.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. I mean, I was in
I
the
was
gym
there
like
too.
2 hours a day, like literally
Yeah.
every day for years, writing down what I would eat, calculating all of it, restricting myself, because I thought that that's what health was, the diet culture and the
Yeah.
fitness culture. And that took me to the other extreme.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I see this so often in clients. I saw it in myself as well. I'm also a personal trainer, and I completely messed up my metabolism by restricting what I was eating, being so health conscious. My poor older two kids were raised in like they said it was like the food Nazi environment. And it's funny because I've learned that just created this binging on the other end when they were not in my sight, right? And I messed up my own metabolism by doing that. And I'm still, I'm almost approaching my 50 mark. And I've got a whole nother thing that's going to shift the metabolism. But
Sure.
those extremes, and I really highlight this when I speak to clients and when I speak to my students, those extremes can take you out of balance, that all or nothing mentality. And I have a client that I worked with that was, couldn't understand. In Ayurveda, we call it the fire, right? She had so much fire in her. And I'm like, you're drinking the kombucha because you heard that that's great with the ginger and the this, but you're actually adding to the fire in your body. And, you're following this trend and you're following that trend. And when we follow the trends without really tuning into what it is that we need as individuals, that's when we can get out of balance.
Yeah.
And I don't think people understand that what might work, and I was thinking about this when you're talking about all the reading that you were doing in the omegas and all this, when you read about something and you hear something, even diets, right? Certain diets, the ketogenic diet is the rage and that helps everybody, or the this diet and the that diet. There are times and places for everything, but every body is different. And what we have to really tune into is, what is it that I need? What feels good in my body? What feels good makes me feel like I can sustain this and feel good. It's the extremes, whether it's taking the pills and popping the pills and being on a million different medications, or it's popping the other kind of pills, which are the supplements and where we get away from the root, which is actual food, which is actual, mind body management, stress management, because those extremes of exercise can actually create more stress.
Yeah.
The extremes of restricted dieting. And I had a client one time that couldn't enjoy herself at a party because she couldn't log the food and the drinks, and she's only allowed herself or log this drink. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Now, some of us could maybe, like myself, sometimes at a party, we could probably sometimes rein it in a little bit more. But here's the thing. You got to embrace yourself as well as your imperfection. There is no perfect way of being. You have to find your center, your balance, what keeps you. And then those little whispers of the body, when the whispers of the body tell you, I'm feeling a little off right now, or that's when you address it. I talk to my students about the drain analogy. I love using this analogy. When my drain in my bathroom, I have long hair, when my drain in my bathroom starts to get a little sluggish, and I'm noticing that, the water isn't draining as fast as I'd like it to be. That's when I can use the natural stuff like the baking soda and vinegar to clear my drain. But when I wait and I say, oh, I'll get to that later, and I find that there's standing water in my bathroom sink, that's when sometimes I have to pull out the chemicals. And so I am a firm believer that sometimes when people are so dysregulated, that you do need a little bit of chemical support, be it herbs, supplements, or actual medication. But the goal of medication is not necessarily long-term. It's like, it is that Band-Aid to bring you back to center. And then you have to really tune in and create that lifestyle and behavior change. So, I everything that you said so resonates. And I really hope that listeners out there, listen, we've all been the trend followers, but really tuning into what resonates with you. What is your own truth? What is it that you need is really the key. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. You said, so many gold nuggets in there. I feel like we could pull out so many little quotes and just be like, yes, this. But that idea of personalization
Yes.
is the key. It is the key
Yeah.
to help, because there is no food is good or bad. No exercise is good or bad. It's what is it for you? And in that pillar, in those 6 pillars, that first pillar is personalized nutrition.
Mhm.
Because, I'm a dietitian. People are like, oh, what should I be eating?
Mm.
I don't know. I can't tell
Right.
you that. I'm here to support you. And unless we're doing that deep work together, I'm not going to be giving someone just, all these different nutrition advice, because it's not for them. And I think that's another issue that I was running into in fitness, right? Eat all this protein. That was awful for me and my body. All
Yeah.
of that meat and
Oh my
animal
gosh.
products and
My
all of that.
boys are obsessed with protein right now.
Oh my gosh.
And can we
So,
talk about creatine? The boys and creatine. I'm like, you don't have the amount of testosterone in your body to get the shred that you're looking for. Sorry.
oh, I love that. I
I
love that.
digress. But I have 4 boys, and let me tell you, it's all about the muscles.
But
Mm,
right, so it's where someone's at and what their goals are, that's
yeah.
valid, and where they've come from. Like,
Yes.
it's this roadmap that I always do when I first start working with someone, which is, all right, let's see where you're at. Let's look at all these different lifestyle things, any
Yeah.
diagnosis, any other just struggles, symptoms, right? Not just your chief complaint, but literally everything, because everything's connected. If your
Yeah.
sinuses are congested and your gut's a mess and you have joint pain and depression, like, you better believe all of those are related, right?
Yes.
So where are you at now? Identifying where you want to be. What does your optimal health look like for you? An athlete's goals are going to be different than
Yeah.
maybe, a mom of, twin newborns, right? Like,
Ooh,
everyone's
yeah.
goals are going to be different.
Survival.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's athletic performance, maybe it's getting through the day and feeling energized and being able to play with your kids and enjoy that.
Yeah.
Maybe, everyone is different. So
Right.
identifying what that goal is,
Yeah.
but also looking at how did you come to be where you're at?
Yes.
Because it's a journey to get you from there to here to where you're trying to get. And we
Yes.
have to look at you as a whole being, your whole lifestyle, and look at that trajectory, because we can find so many insights by going backwards. And
Yes.
here's the key, right? We know that our medical appointments are typically less than 10 minutes. And it's not anyone's fault. Like, I want to make that so
Oh, no,
clear. It is
absolutely.
not our doctor's fault. It is not our healthcare provider's fault.
Right.
It is the system that they're working in. I know so many physicians who are like, I want to spend more time. I
Yeah.
want to get into the nitty gritty. I want to talk to them more about nutrition. I can't with 6 minutes,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
how can you put out the fire? This is the medication you can take. And some physicians will say, I recommend, you start changing your nutrition, but they can't provide that supportive
Right.
approach to help them find what kind of nutrition,
Right.
what kind of movement, what about your
Mhm.
sleep cycle, because we don't have the time. So it's
Absolutely.
fundamentally built into our system. Also, if you go in and you're like, I just want to check in and, like, talk about, my long-term health, they might be like, okay, like, I have other people who
Yeah,
are
right.
really sick that need my attention.
Right. Hi,
And
this is an acute care place.
yeah, exactly,
Or
exactly.
you have the person that comes in with one complaint and then they're leaving. My husband gets this, and a good friend of mine actually, when they say, "Do you have anything else?" And they're like, "Well, I've been having chest pain." And they're like, "What?" At the very end of the appointment. Anyway, yes. No,
It
I mean, so important to understand yourself first. You can't expect somebody else to fix you if you don't have any idea of what the problems could be. For me, I feel like when you go see a practitioner, when you come to see me or you go to see you, it's like usually you have an idea that something is off. And you might say, I don't know what it is. And sort of my job is to kind of help you sift through your own knowledge to come up with, ooh, well, it could be that. And I think a lot of the, I believe a lot of the root cause of a lot of the issues is stress. And whether that is, I mean, physical stress, because of lack of sleep, because of, an illness or something. But stress lowers the immune system. Stress interferes with the gut microbiome. Stress interferes with our brain and our ability to think. I mean, stress is at the root cause of, I think I read 70% of illnesses. Stress is at the root cause of that. But what people don't understand is all the different kinds of stress. I think people think stress is like, you know, loss of a job or, the kids and the this and the that. But when stress is any uncertainty and anything that causes you to adapt. And the perception of what a stressor is changes from person to person. And when you have a lot on your plate or you don't have the resiliency, you don't have the hope, more things are stressful. And it takes one more thing added to your plate to completely throw you out of balance. So when you look at what the root cause of your own illnesses were growing up, your mental health challenges, can you trace the root?
Yeah. So there were definitely multiple contributing factors, right? As there always is. Trying to take more of a holistic view of what all was going on, for me as a whole being.
The big picture, I call it. Yeah.
Big picture, yeah. So my lifestyle was definitely not conducive to health. I was not nourishing my body in a way, right? Food is information. It's literally information. You talked about your experiences in the hospital and with your son and
Mhm.
kids eating McDonald's after getting surgery. And food is information. It tells our body and our brain how to function.
Mhm.
And so, yes, are calories important when you're trying to keep weight on someone? Absolutely. But what are those calories made up of? Because
Mm.
that's just as, if not more important.
Mhm.
So I was not giving my body, my brain, the information it needed. And don't get me wrong, I wasn't like living on junk food. My mom used to make homemade meals every night for dinner, but it wasn't optimal for me just in general the way I was eating, right? Most teens, I think, don't eat the
Yeah.
most nourishing
No.
foods.
No.
Um, so it's like this vicious cycle because
Mm.
you have the anxiety, you have the depression, it impacts your food choices.
Right.
And then those food choices impact your mental health. They impact the gut health. And then it goes around and
Right.
around. So it was this
Mhm.
exacerbating cycle. Same
And
thing
then
with
the
my
depression
sleep.
comes because of what
Yeah.
happens with the gut. Yes.
Yes. And my sleep was an absolute wreck. I had insomnia. I would lay in bed until the sun came up, and those were some of the worst
Yeah.
hours of my
Yeah.
life. And then you're exhausted, so then you sleep during the day, but then it's again, you're out of sync
Yes.
now,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Movement. If you're not moving, that's going to be pro-inflammatory. It's going to promote certain chemicals essentially
Yeah.
being created in the brain that are depressants.
Yep.
But then when you're depressed, it's hard to move.
Yes.
So all of these pieces are out of sync. Additionally, I had antibiotics, oh my gosh, I don't know, once or
Oh,
twice a year or 3 times a year for 10 years. So
mm.
just think about, right, every time you take antibiotics, more than half of your gut microbiome is wiped out. And it
Yep.
takes years for it to come back. So I was continually wiping out my gut microbiome, which the gut brain connection impacts mental health, impacts the immune system. So now I'm getting more infections, but then I take antibiotics for the infections, it wipes out the
Yep.
gut, right?
Yep.
Everything's
Yep. Full
connected.
cycle. Yep. Mhm.
So there were all these lifestyle pieces. And then, I mentioned, I had experienced some traumas at a young age that weren't really addressed fully. And so that was something that I was really struggling with. There was, there was a lot of different aspects contributing to this. And the
Mhm.
problem was we were only taking one kind of approach, right?
Yep.
Which was the therapy
Yeah. Oh,
and the
there.
medication,
Yeah.
which are, again, can both be vital pieces, but we weren't looking at my
The
lifestyle. We weren't
whole
looking at my
picture. Right.
body.
Yeah, absolutely. And, quickly, I want to just mention the cutting. You talked about the cutting, and I loved what you said because, I mean, I've had a couple of people, friends of mine who've been dealing with their kids cutting, but was just called by a woman who wanted my help, um, because she didn't want to go to the normal, Western medicine route because her daughter wasn't interested in that, and she wanted more of a holistic approach. But her daughter is battling, 17-year-old daughter battling depression and anxiety and cutting. And what you said, as far as I couldn't wrap my head around the physical pain. I mean, I could wrap my head around the physical pain, but I couldn't wrap my head around the emotional pain. And what I think we try to understand it from a why would somebody do that?
Right.
But it's at a place where it's so deep, and I think that when you're cutting, I've never cut, but from what I understand, when you're cutting, it's like you don't understand why you're doing it, but it's like you just are feeling so bad and conflicted inside that you need almost a release for that pain to come out. And so by
Yeah.
cutting, am I right with that? by cutting, it allows that pain to kind of give it its own release, even though it's not really doing that. But the depth of that is so rooted in emotions and spirituality, I think. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think for me that's very true. I think there was another aspect of, that people say often, and I heard this a lot as a teen, like you're cutting for attention. And I
Mm,
think that is a very harmful thing to say and to
agreed.
really think.
Very limiting. It's very limiting because
Very
usually
limiting.
you cut where people can't see.
Yeah, many people do. And but the idea that that you're using your pain to get attention, if that, let's say that's true. Let's say someone's cutting to be noticed. That's still a huge
Right,
red flag, right? They're in so
exactly.
much pain
Right.
and struggling that they're like, look, this is real. And
Yes.
there may have even been a level of that. Like, you guys think that I'm crazy, but I'm telling you, this is real pain. If you can't
Yeah.
see my emotional pain, you can see the cuts on my arms, right?
Mhm.
And I don't know if any of this was, conscious during that time, but it's definitely something that, I think about now in terms of why was I doing and what were all of those different roles that was playing for me. And
Mhm.
I think that it's so layered, and it's
Yeah.
something that I still unpack today,
Yeah.
years later.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, okay, as we are kind of winding down, do you have some top tips for my listeners as far as what would you say to do when you're struggling with something? What would be your top tips to kind of start to look at what could be the underlying cause of it, to unpack the
Yeah.
baggage?
Yeah. uh, so top tip, so I would say look at your lifestyle as a whole and try to think about your mind, your body, your spirit, all of these different layers, and identify which areas might be filling you up versus draining you, right? So
Mm,
maybe you have a really robust, um, you know, spiritual practice and support, and all of those pieces are in line, but maybe your lifestyle is is each component fostering or diminishing health,
that's a
essentially.
great idea. Yeah.
And then take those 6 pillars, right? The nutrition, movement, sleep, toxins, mindfulness, community, and do the same. Which ones are fostering or diminishing your health? And that can help you develop a roadmap.
Mm,
One thing I do with all of my clients, and you could do this on your own, is create a timeline of your life.
mm,
And what were certain triggers, and how did that show up for you in terms of your health and wellness? Because we can put a lot of these pieces together, and having that understanding, like you said, no one knows us better than we know ourselves, but we have to look, we have to
mm,
dig. And
mhm.
so if you can create that timeline, see what has been contributing to where you're at now, identify where you want to go and why, because that's important,
Right.
and then identify which of those pillars do you need to support with or to work on. And
Yeah.
don't be afraid to get support. I hear all the time folks say, I just, I don't have the willpower, I don't have the energy, I can't do, like, it's me, and they
Right.
take personal responsibility.
Or I don't have the time. I hear that all the time.
I
I
don't
don't
have
have the time. And I'm like, well, time is a created thing. And when you say you don't have time, it means it's not a priority of yours. So that means you're not a priority of yours.
Yeah. But if you don't have the time, or you think you don't have the motivation
Mm,
or the self-control, challenge that, right?
right.
What if it is still possible, and maybe you need more community, maybe you need more support, maybe you need more tools. I just did a workshop last night on integrating healthy habits into a busy lifestyle, right?
Yes.
So it's possible no matter what scenario you're in, as long as you have the tools
Yeah.
and the knowledge. And that is the part, I think, where we have to go from that fixed mindset of I can't do it to this growth mindset of I need support, I need community, I need more tools, and
Right.
then I can.
Right. Yeah.
And really working with someone, like, I love what you said about we have to be able to do the work ourselves. And one of the problems that we talked about before, and you mentioned, I think it was your husband who just kind of, okay, I'll do it, or I'll take the thing, or maybe it wasn't your husband, a
My
friend,
mom, my mother. Yeah,
your mom,
yeah,
right?
my
Okay,
mom.
if that's what you say, but find someone who's going to work with you.
Yes.
And it's a team approach. You should be a voice in
Mm,
your healthcare team. And you should never be, in my view, told what to do. You should be presented with your options, because at the end of the day, it's up to you. And when you decide what direction you want to go, once you're informed with all the information and the different options, that support, that healthcare team should be supporting you in your journey
yes,
along the way.
absolutely. So that being said, if you are looking for support, I know that I have, a lot of times I find people that maybe they have some obstacles or lack of motivation to do some of the work because they're stuck in that fight or flight. And that's my specialty, is helping people get out of that fight or flight to find the hope and the resiliency. So I have courses online. I'm sure you have programs as well, but I support the moms that are struggling with that fight or flight and that
Mm,
overwhelm where they
mm,
can't kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel.
mm.
So you can go on my website, jenniferrentolo.com, to find that information. But how can people reach out and work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the best place to find me is my website, kayteehadley.com. That's Kaytee is my first name. And I do one-on-one support, which is, I work with a lot of folks who have the chronic, the complex things
Mhm.
they've been dealing with for years, if not their whole life,
Yeah,
and want to take kind of interested in another perspective, want to take a real lifestyle approach.
yeah,
I even coordinate with their doctors so that we're all on the same page, right? That
yeah,
unified team.
absolutely. Very important.
And then I also have a group membership, which is just this amazing online community. And we do workshops twice a month, and we do drop in office hours. And it's really focused on providing more education and support in kind of a non health condition specific way,
Mm,
just in general. How can we incorporate more of these strategies? We did a whole month on gut health. I mentioned last night we talked about integrating healthy habits into a busy lifestyle. We
mm,
did a month on toxins. So really
great.
just more information and empowerment. So the best way to find me, yeah, is my website. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook at Kaytee Hadley. And I'd be more than happy to talk with anyone listening, just a no pressure, free discovery call, what it is that you're dealing with. If you're interested in my perspective, I can absolutely provide that and talk more about working one on one.
Awesome. Well, this was such a refreshing conversation. Obviously, we have a lot in common. We could talk for hours, but I'll definitely have you on again because this is a powerful topic, and I felt like today I really wanted to focus on the mental health aspect. But I encourage everybody to reach out to Kaytee and be a part of her online community, because that is just sounding like a wealth of resources. And if you need help, if you find yourself struggling, 100% reach out, even if it's just that discovery call with Kaytee, with myself. Have a discovery call. It hurts no one, it harms no one. There is nothing like a little information, a little clarity
Yeah,
to help direct you on your path.
absolutely.
So, thank
Absolutely.
you so much for being a part of the Grounded
Thank
Awakenings.
you.
And for all of you, I encourage you to keep your feet firmly planted on the ground as you take your arms and reach up high to connect to your higher self. Be well, everyone.
Thank you, Jen.